Hi guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the Berny AM128M GMT. I was sent this watch for free by the Berny official website and Berny official AliExpress store. I don't have to send the watch back, but you can always expect a straightforward and honest review on this channel. And as always, if by the end of this review you find yourself wanting to pick one of these up, I'll be leaving a link to the official website as well as an affiliate link to the official AliExpress store down in the video description. If you use that AliExpress link, you aren't going to pay any extra, but this channel will benefit from the small commission earned, which helps keep the channel going. So a huge thank you goes out to anyone and everyone who has ever helped by using one of my links. I really do appreciate it. I am still doing what I like doing because of you guys. So thank you guys so much. Current retail price for this watch varies depending on where you're getting it from. It is $160 US from the official website and $181 US from AliExpress. There is currently a $15 off AliExpress coupon, so it does bring them pretty close together. That is before any sales taxes, coupons, or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. As for the color options, I'm going to pop them up on screen. You have 6 choices that you can see here. They're matte black dials and also faux meteorite dials, which are then mixed with different GMT style bezel inserts, and all of the bezel inserts on these watches are fully lumed as well as aluminum. So even the typical colors that are normally ceramic that you see on some watches, they are aluminum. So just keep that in mind. The watch case, bracelet, and clasp are made of stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal, a screw down crown, screw down case back, 200 meters of claimed water resistance, and the watch is powered by the Seiko NH34 automatic GMT movement. So I have reviewed quite a few Berny watches on this channel, and in general they offer pretty good value for money, but I feel like some of their decisions come back to bite them, and this is one of those situations. The watch on its own, it's actually pretty good, but compare it to some others and it falls a little bit short. There's one pretty big letdown of this watch, and we'll get to it really quickly. So I say we get into the full review, but before we do a quick wrist check. Wearing a Seiko build that I just did, kind of wanted a root beer colorway, and I made it myself. So yeah. All right, so let's get into the dimensions. We got a diameter of about 40.4 millimeters, case thickness of 14.0, 20 millimeter lug width, lug to lug of 48.0. The male end links on the bracelet, the total length is 50.5 millimeters, and sized up for my 7.5-inch wrist with 5 links removed. It weighs about 152 grams. So most of those dimensions are pretty normal, right? That's, 40.5 on diameter, 48 lug to lug, 20 millimeter lug width, 150 grams. That's all pretty normal. What isn't normal is the thickness on this thing. The thickness, 14 millimeters, it's unnecessarily thick. I don't know why they chose to go with this case. Their previous case that they used on the NH35 was a thinner case than this one. It still wasn't my favorite case, but it was at least a little bit better than this. You can see the mid case is quite chunky on this watch. And just for reference, I'm going to bring in, I know this is a completely different price category, but they should be shooting for a watch case like this. I mean, just look at these two side by side. It's a huge visual difference on wrist, and it makes a big difference in the way the watch looks and the way the watch wears. So yeah, I'm just not convinced by the case that they chose on this watch. And that's kind of my main gripe with this entire thing. Everything else is really nice, but that case thickness is a problem. But I will say the watch wears pretty good on the wrist for being 14 millimeters thick. It's really not horrible. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5-inch wrist, and as you can see, it wears great. I've got no issues with the way it wears. A little bit chunky for this style of watch compared to other ones, but it is very comfortable. I've got no real complaints, I guess, other than the fact that it's just too thick for what this watch is. But I will say it is super comfortable. This bracelet feels nice and balanced. It's also very comfortable, which we'll talk about later. And I do like this aluminum bezel, just something a little bit different from the ceramic. And I think, they did a pretty good job with it. And here we are, just a little bit different lighting, unfortunately. Don't have some direct sunlight right now. I'm about to get absolutely dumped on. Big rainstorm coming. So I'm not going to throw this on any other straps. I've done a very similar watch to this. Check out the Pagani review. The black and green bezel. It doesn't really go with a whole lot other than black straps. So I think it should just live on the 5-link bracelet. It does look good on this thing. It's very comfortable, like I said, and I think this is the one you should stick with. So let's get right back into this review, and I'm going to get inside before it starts to rain on me. Now let's talk about the case finishing. So case finishing on this watch is actually pretty good. Berny's done a pretty good job on their case finishing. You can see really nice consistent brushing on the tops of the lugs here, nice and straight. You got polished on the sides here. The polishing isn't the best, but it's really not that bad, and on wrist you don't really notice it. You can see if you really start to nitpick though, you can see how it's a little bit kind of blurry here. You like to see it a little bit more crisp than that. There was the reflections, but it's really not that bad. Same with the other side here, polished on the sides, polished crown guards, polished crown, unsigned. At this price point, I'd like to see a signed crown. The crown is pretty small, but it does tuck in nicely, and I have no problem gripping it. So not really a big deal with that. Flipping the watch over to the case back, you can see a circular brushing on the bottom of the lugs, and then a circular brushing on the case back. It is a screw down case back, simple notches to get your case back removal tool in. Berny logo with the Berny model number, and then a spec sheet around the outside. Very simple, it's very soft, very comfortable. I've got no problems with the case back. I don't have any major complaints with the case finishing in general. All right, so let's talk about the bezel on this thing. So the bezel itself is a 90 click unidirectional bezel. 90 clicks, not 120, not 24 like it should be in bidirectional. So it is 90 click unidirectional, and I'll let you listen to it here. Very audible clicks. The resistance is maybe just a little on the light side, but it's not super light. I haven't accidentally knocked it or anything like that. The grip is fine. The sound is a little hollow sounding, I guess. It's just not a very satisfying click. But the bezel action isn't horrible. What I'm not a fan of is the bezel play. So you do have some bezel play, as you can see there, and it is in play in every direction. I'm able to wiggle the bezel up and down, and I'm also able to press on the bezel here, and it's got a little play there. So there is some play in the bezel. Not too happy with that, especially at this price point. They could definitely do better with that. The bezel insert on this and all other models is an aluminum insert, and it is engraved. So it's really interesting, filled with white BGW9 lume. So the lume on this bezel insert is very good. You can see nice crisp transitions between the two colors as well. And I think it looks pretty good. It's a little bit different than normal. Most of these bezels are ceramic except for the Pepsis and the Cokes. Those ones are usually an aluminum, but they went with aluminum on all their colors. And you can see it kind of gives a little bit of just a different look to it. And I actually like it. I'm quite happy with the bezel insert on this thing. I think it looks really good. The alignment is spot on, and I see no major issues with the bezel insert on it. I really like it, actually. All right, so let's talk about the crystal on this thing. We're going to test it for sapphire. So that tested positive for sapphire on both the crystal and the Cyclops, which is nice to see. It's a flat piece of sapphire crystal. It sits ever so slightly above the bezel, as you can see there. A little bit of a chamfer on the corner there. Very simple, very plain. They say it has anti-reflective coating. I am not seeing it at all. If it's there, it is so light that they just put it on there for the spec sheet. So, but I will say, a flat sapphire crystal on a black dial is never an issue for me. It's only when you get domes and stuff like that it becomes a problem with visibility, and you can see that right in the Cyclops. So the Cyclops obviously has a curvature to it, and it's pretty hard to read it, especially under my studio light. It's a problem, and you can see the Cyclops. It's actually aligned really good, and the magnification on that Cyclops is huge. It's got to be like 3 or 3.5 times. It's huge, absolutely massive, and that's because this rehaut is so deep. I mean, I don't know if it's coming across. Again, I'm going to bring in another comparison. This is a Seiko build that I did, and there's the two side by side. This is an NH34, so you can see what they could have done and what they decided to do. I would say like 5 millimeters of rehaut. It's just unnecessary. And again, bringing in, so this is a San Martin SN017 case, and there's the rehaut differences there. So hopefully that's coming across on camera. The San Martin case is not known for a shallow rehaut. And you can just see that the Berny rehout is just, it's almost like twice as deep as that one. So just one of those things. Coming back to that case, the watch in general is really good, but that case is a problem. All right, so let's talk about the dial on this thing. And the dial is done pretty good. Again, no major complaints with the dial. You have your big Berny branding, which I know some people hate. It doesn't really bother me. You have a lot of text down here at the 6 o'clock. You have super luminous, diver 200 meters, 660 feet, or 656 feet. And then automatic GMT in green. I like that they matched the GMT green and the GMT hand green. I think it looks really good. The dial itself is a matte black dial. It's got a printed minute ring around the outside and then applied indices at all the hour markers except 3 o'clock, which is where your date is. Yeah, I'm overall pretty happy with the dial on it. It's definitely not the highest quality dial. And when I say that, I don't even know if I can show you guys. But the top, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to show you, but the top edge of the circular indices, they're kind of rounded. Now, if I bring in the Suggest, you can see, I don't even know if you can see it or not, but the top edge is very flat. So that's what kind of tips me off to them cutting a little bit of corners on the dial itself. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, it's a very minor complaint, but it is a complaint of mine, and I'd like to see it. I mean, I know Steel Dive, San Martin, Suggest, they all use really nice circular indices that kind of match the other indices. So I would like to see that, especially at this price point. And I think the handset that they used is actually pretty nice. It is a fully polished handset. I think it's a decent size, maybe a little bit short, but really not that bad. It's kind of what I expected. Yeah, I have no real complaints with the handset on this thing, and the lume on this thing is excellent. So I'm going to pop up a lume shot right now, and here you can see it against a couple other watches in the collection, and it is very strong. It's a mixture of BGW9 on the hands and on the bezel, and then C3 on the dial. It's really interesting. I'm not sure why they decided to mix and match, but the lume lasts all night long. It's very strong, and I'm very happy with the lume on it. It's really good. All right, so let's talk about the movement in this thing. So the movement is the Seiko NH34 automatic movement. Here's how mine is running. It's been running good. Obviously, I'd like to be a little on the fast side instead of slow, but I really can't complain with that accuracy. Beat Air is also really good, and I've had zero problems with the movement. So the movement is operated by this 3 o'clock unsigned but screw down crown. Nice and grippy. I've got no problems with that. The screw in, screw out action is nice and smooth. You get a satisfying pop out. First position is your hand winding. Again, nice and smooth. Second position, you roll it backwards and that changes your date. Date seems to be nicely centered as well, so no problems there. And then you roll it forward and that's where you have your jumping GMT hand. It's got a pretty satisfying click, and yeah, it just jumps right into place. I've got no real complaints with it. I think it works perfectly fine, and it's exactly what I expected. Pulling it out to the third position, that hacks your movement. So this is a hacking, hand winding, automatic, dual directional winding rotor. Yeah, no complaints with it. 21,600 beats per hour. Pressing in the crown there, you get a nice satisfying pop and it starts up the movement again. So no problems with that. Yeah, I've got no problems with the NH34. It does everything you need it to do. It's actually coming down in price now. I think I've seen them for like $40. So replacing a movement down the road is not going to be a problem. But these movements they're just known to be reliable and accurate enough. So I think there's no problem with the movement on this thing. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. So the bracelet is 20 millimeters and it tapers down to 16 millimeters at the clasp. It is comprised of 5 solid links, and you have brushing on the outer links, polishing on the middle links. It is solid end links as well. They are male pivot end links, but you can see, I mean, they curve down pretty much right away. So that's pretty much a non-issue for me. The end links themselves are in there really nice and tight. The gaps in between the links and the case are non-existent. I mean, it's really a nice tight fit. Very happy with the end links on this thing. Even they follow the curvature of the case nicely. They are finished very similar. So I have no problems with the end links on this. I think they fit really good and they look really good. The brushing and polishing on the bracelet links themselves, again, really nicely done. This bottom edge is pretty nice and soft. It flows really nice. I mean, it's a good 5-link bracelet. You can see it's got plenty of flex in there without being too jangly. These are supposed to be a little bit jangly, but Yeah, this thing, it's great. I've got no complaints with that. You have push pins for sizing. I had to remove 5 links for my 7.5-inch wrist, and you've got 5 more links to go. So you should be able to fit a lot of wrist sizes with this thing. So working our way to the clasp on this thing, it's a pretty familiar looking clasp, right? So it is a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces. Again, you have brushing on the outside, which is nicely done, polished in the middle link, polishing on the sides here. Everything on this bottom edge is pretty nice and soft. It never really bothered my wrist. These top edges here, these corners are a little bit sharp. But other than that, really not a bad clasp. Opening the clasp is very simple. You just get a fingernail in there, flip that up, and then pull over here. Really nice and simple. You've got some okay tolerances here. You can see here, it does slide back and forth. And then you've got pretty tight tolerances up here. I've had some of these clasps where the tolerances on these 2 links make it almost impossible to close. But like I'm trying to get this thing off center and it still closes every time. So no problems with that. So the big selling point of this clasp is the on-the-fly adjustment. As you can see here, if you don't know what these look like or how these work, they're pretty easy to use. This one is a little bit stiff, I'll say that, but you open it up and you can see this little tooth here settles into these grooves here. So you just kind of slide this thing back and forth wherever you want it, and then you just press it and lock it into place. I will say it is a very stiff clasp, and there's a little bit of slop in there, so it does have trouble closing from time to time. You could see I struggled just a little bit there. But yeah, other than that though, it works really good when you get it settled into place. It doesn't pop out or anything like that. And then you get the convenience of on-the-fly adjustment. So overall, pretty satisfied with the clasp and pretty satisfied with the bracelet on this thing. So there you go, guys. That is the Berny AM128M GMT watch. It's a new watch from them. And I think overall, like on its own, this watch is really good. It's got a lot going for it. It has decent bezel. That's probably my second biggest complaint is the bezel on it. But it's got very good lume. It's got good finishing on the dial, good finishing on the case and the bracelet. The bracelet is actually pretty good. It's got on-the-fly adjustment, a solid movement. Yeah, I mean, on its own, it is a really nice watch. But then you compare it to what's out there, and that's where it kind of starts to fall short a little bit. They definitely need to trim down this case. That is my biggest complaint. The rehout is going to be a big complaint of a lot of people. And I know, I kind of get spoiled when I bring in this Suggest. You can see there. But obviously this is like a $350 watch. This is not. This is half the price. But they could definitely trim this down a little bit and get it kind of at least on par with a case like this. If they made this rehout or this case in general, close to the thinness and sleekness of this case here, I would be super happy with this watch. Super happy. But as it is, it's just too thick. And that's my big complaint with this watch, is that it's just way too thick, and that chapter ring or rehout, whatever you want to call it, is way too deep. And that's kind of my feelings on the watch. Overall, it's a really nice watch, but when you compare it to what else is out there, it falls out a little bit short. So I think that's it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.